SKOL Vikings, let's win this game.
Vikings Nation, you can feel the temperature rising like August humidity in Egan. Down at the Combine, the front office pulled up a chair with a mountain of a defensive tackle to bulk up the core. Out of nowhere, a seasoned quarterback suddenly popped onto the trade radar. At the same time, an insider lit the fuse on talk of a genuine QB1 showdown. There's even a heavyweight name being tossed around as possible leverage. And to top it all off, a blunt explanation for a firing just rattled the walls. Buckle up, because we're diving headfirst into this storm. Out in Indianapolis, while everybody else drools over quarterbacks and wideouts, Minnesota's brass has been eyeing the engine room. They want mass. They want force. Flores dialed up the aggression last year, sure, but when teams lined up and ran straight at us, it made anyone who lives and breathes Vikings football shift in their seat. Then out of the blue, DeMonte Capehart's name surfaced in connection with Minnesota. 6 years grinding at Clemson, 57 games, doing the kind of trench work that never makes the highlight shows. His numbers, 72 tackles, 13.5 for loss, 3 sacks, won't blow your hair back. But turn on the tape and you feel him. At over 300 pounds and taller than 6'4", he ripped off a sub 4.85 40 and jumped over 33 inches. That's rare air for a man built like that. He ended up on a list usually reserved for top offensive linemen. Only defensive guy there, that grabs attention. Evaluators call him a double-team absorber, a gap enforcer, a sturdy anchor. Not a flashy pass rusher, but reliable when somebody tries to punch you in the mouth. The Vikings were 9th in run defense DVOA last year. Respectable, not suffocating. There's daylight to close. Money matters too. Jonathan Allen and Javon Hargrave carry price tags, and the cap isn't exactly loose change. Hargrave especially could become a logical cap casualty. If that door opens, pairing a rookie like Capehart with Levi Drake Rodriguez and Tyrion Ingram Dawkins starts shaping a younger, cheaper wall up front. I'm telling you, I like that blueprint. It's not fireworks. It won't fly off the merch racks. But titles are forged where bodies collide. Flores needs interior fighters. A combine meeting isn't a contract, but it signals real homework being done. That's the kind of layered breakdown we talk about here, not just stat sheet surfing. Let me hear you. Would you burn a day 3 pick on him? Because if that was the subtle move in Indy, the quarterback situation is a whole different thundercloud. Meanwhile, the quarterback room feels like a pot left on high heat. The organization wants J.J. McCarthy pushed, but they're not trying to yank the rug out from under a 23-year-old. It's a tightrope act. Encourage growth without crushing belief. In that light, Andy Dalton's name floated up. Carolina's general manager flat out said if a trade scenario appears, he'd talk to Dalton and give him the choice. That's real. Dalton's completed nearly 65% of his throws the past few seasons, averaged 6.4 yards per attempt with 10 touchdowns and 7 picks in that span. Nothing jaw-dropping, nothing catastrophic. When Bryce Young got benched, Dalton stepped in for 5 games. The Panthers went 1-4, but the offense functioned. That's the debate right there. Minnesota needs a steady hand if McCarthy hits turbulence or gets dinged up. We all remember the scramble for a late fix. Nobody wants that rerun. Dalton turns 39 this season. He processes fast. He's composed. But he's not exactly moving the franchise meter. Since 2019, he's 16-33 as a starter. Yes, context counts. Those weren't juggernaut rosters. If this is about experienced insurance, Dalton fits. If it's about lighting a fire under McCarthy with a true duel, maybe not. Real battles create real pressure. Some folks bring up Joe Flacco as a cheaper free agent alternative. Others want higher upside swings. Minnesota has to pick its lane. Total trust in the young gun, or a backup sturdy enough to step in without a nosedive. McCarthy went 6-4 as a starter, but completed just 57.6% with 11 touchdowns and 12 interceptions. There were sparks. There were growing pains. He's still under construction. For a team that feels its window tightening, that's uneasy territory. If Dalton walks in, he's a presence hovering nearby. Respectful, sure, but hovering. And that can tilt a locker room vibe. The real issue isn't whether Dalton can play, it's whether he elevates the competition or just keeps the seat warm. And once you start talking about real competition, the conversation gets a whole lot louder. What one insider dropped this week just cranked the volume. Before we push further, do me a solid, tap that subscribe button and roll with us. It costs you nothing and it keeps this purple family growing. All right, back to it. Then the whole thing exploded when Tom Pelissero weighed in. Not some random voice. This is a guy wired into Minnesota. And what he reported poured jet fuel on the QB chatter. The Vikings, according to Pelissero, want a true QB1 competition. Not a ceremonial backup, a legitimate clash. And when he floated potential fits, it changed the temperature. Kyler Murray, Geno Smith. Let that sink in. Murray, former first overall pick, electric arm, dynamic legs, still in his prime. Geno Smith, from 2022 through 2024 in Seattle, he stacked 2 Pro Bowls and even finished 9th in MVP voting in 2022. These aren't bit players. Pelissero's logic makes sense. Unlike Aaron Rodgers or a Kirk Cousins reunion, Murray or Smith could walk in without decades of baggage or emotional ties. Equal footing. I won't lie, that's compelling. If McCarthy beats out someone of that caliber, he earns it the hard way. If he doesn't, you still have a proven starter. That's bold thinking. Pelissero also said Justin Jefferson still backs McCarthy. That matters. Belief inside the locker room is gold, but he noted the team wants insurance because McCarthy hasn't proven durability yet. No one wants to be dialing up emergency quarterbacks in late August. Picture training camp reps split between McCarthy and Murray, or McCarthy and Geno, every throw under a microscope. Does that sharpen steel or crack it? Fans are divided. Some see hidden doubt. Others see healthy competition. I see a front office that knows whiffing at quarterback can set you back years. Jump in. Would you bring in one of those names to compete or hand McCarthy the keys outright? Because while that scenario fires people up, there's another name floating around that could flip the whole table. And it's not necessarily a blessing. There's a glittering lure out there, and it's got a Hall of Fame resume attached. When Aaron Rodgers' name pops up with Minnesota again, you feel the pull. National TV chatter says Rodgers would have interest if the Vikings opened the door. We heard it last year. Now it's back in rotation. He's 42. Still threw for over 3,300 yards and 24 touchdowns last season. Not peak 2020 MVP Rodgers, but far from washed. Put him in a dome with Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, and TJ Hawkinson, and your mind starts racing. On paper, it's a clean, schematic fit. Controlled environment, explosive weapons, offensive-minded head coach. And imagine the Green Bay matchups. Absolute headline factory. Every press conference dissected like a crime scene. It would be theater. But here's the reality check. The second Rodgers walks in, he becomes the sun everything orbits. Every loss becomes a saga. Every win sparks countdown talk about how long it lasts. Dominique Foxworth nailed it. You can't just slot Rodgers into a lineup like a spare part. He carries personality, history, gravity. Minnesota has been carving out its own identity under Kevin O'Connell. A young core is still forming. Drop Rodgers in and the timeline shifts. He's short-term, maybe a year, maybe 2. Then you're rebooting again. Or you've stalled the quarterback you drafted. I get the allure. Rodgers to Jefferson in purple would light up the league. But this game isn't fantasy football. It's about continuity. Sometimes the hardest move is saying no to the shiny option. And as loud as the quarterback noise is, it almost fades when you consider what surfaced about that recent firing. Now this part hits different. When the truth started circulating, it caught people off guard. Kwesi Adofo-Mensah's exit had been framed around draft questions and personal leave, but the blunt explanation that surfaced pointed straight at quarterback decisions. Peter Schrager laid it out plainly. Ownership wasn't happy with how the QB room was handled. The team had experienced options. Sam Darnold, Daniel Jones, interest from Aaron Rodgers, and still chose to roll with J.J. McCarthy as the starter, backed by Carson Wentz and Max Brosmer. That's heavy. Kwesi and Kevin O'Connell went 43-25 together in the regular season. That's not a failure resume. But when ownership doubts your quarterback call, patience evaporates. This league is ruthless at that spot. I'll be honest, firing someone for sticking with a young quarterback after 1 year feels severe. But if ownership believed safer roads were available and ignored, consequences come fast. Schrager implied the franchise doesn't want to repeat what it views as a mistake. That suggests internally they felt banking solely on McCarthy was too big a gamble, even with injuries factored in. Still, Rodgers would have been short-term. Daniel Jones hasn't sustained elite play. Darnold's been uneven. None were slam dunks. Drafting McCarthy meant buying into development. Pulling the plug early might have screamed panic. Culture needs steadiness. Kwesi's gone. The balancing act between now and later remains. His decision cost him. It could still age well if McCarthy blossoms. What's undeniable is this. Quarterback choices decide careers, directions, and title windows. And right now, the Vikings are staring at a fork in the road. Step back for a second and really look at it. This isn't just about DeMonte Capehart in Indy, not just about Andy Dalton, Kyler Murray, Geno Smith, or the Rodgers shadow looming. It's about who this team wants to be. We talked about fortifying the interior with Capehart. We walked through the idea of bringing in a veteran to test McCarthy. We unpacked a potential open duel for QB1. And we faced the hard truth behind Kwesi Adofo-Mensah's departure. It all funnels into one question. Who's steering this ship? The defense wants more backbone against the run. The offense craves steadiness. The locker room needs direction. You can't operate in constant quarterback limbo, but you also can't torch a young plan out of impatience. I've lived through heartbreak seasons and miracle runs. Sometimes the move that gets roasted ends up legendary. It comes down to conviction. Minnesota is standing at a defining junction. Either commit to growth within real competition or chase quick headlines. I want to hear from you. Drop your take below. This is our Purple and Gold Corner, and your voice matters. Stay tuned. SKOL Vikings, let's go.